lot of it is related to melody. A lot of it just comes right out of melody. You take a tune like All the Things You Are, which has a sequence built into it, right? I mean, it's the circle, right?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, and.
So now, if we think about it in terms of phrases around the melody, we can kind of get into things like this.
1, 2, 3, and.
So it becomes just around the melody. And you can get further away, but sometimes I just like to, sometimes on the first chorus of the solo, I'll really play close to the melody, and then I'll take off. And then sometimes to end my solo, I'll just go back to a little bit of the melody, just so we remind ourselves what we were dealing with. Or sometimes I'll take the last thing that a soloist did on their solo and go from there. Spring.
To start with something.
Start with something that happened that's related to what's going on. And I think knowing the melody, I won't say it's more important than knowing the chords, because you have to know the embellishments have to be responsible to the harmony. But I'll say that if that melody is strong in your mind, that it gives you a much bigger source of making sure that it's related, and it's not just it's not just finger wiggling. Even at a fast tempo, I mean, if you can do the same thing.
The most interesting example for that for me is the way Django play.
Sure. When day is done.
When day is done. 1, 2, 3.
When day is done and shadows fall, I think of you. When day is done, I think of all the joys we knew. That yearning, returning to hold you in my arms. There it is, and so all that embellishment, the melody's in there. The melody's in there, and very strong. It's actually in that particular solo. But and if we the swing players that he most admired definitely had that in their playing. Coleman Hawkins, when we think about his solo on Body and Soul, I mean, what he's playing is the two choruses are just absolutely amazing. But I don't think we ever don't hear the melody in some way. It's not that he's thinking about putting it in there.
But it's always there.
It's not far. But that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about melody a lot. And then harmonically, I'm also thinking about a lot of little neighbors. So the arpeggios are one thing, but then there's all sorts of little neighbors that we can throw in. When I say neighbors, I mean like this little. So we have So we'll go to the 1-6-2-5 again.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
So here's the same type of thing, but instead of that was only chord tones, right?
Yeah,
it was only chord tones, right? So different ways to connect things. It just makes things connect a little more fluidly. And if you have enough neighbors in there, they become scales. Starting with the more modern jazz, they want to teach you what scales to play over chords. I never thought that way. I was more conscious about chord tones and harmonic relationships, and when you connect them, then you just happen to be in a scale. So, and what I notice is that by thinking that way, instead of thinking, do something like Sweet Georgia Brown,
Okay.
like in starting on the D7. So, you know, if we just think about scales instead of the harmonies, you end up with some things like this. But you know, it's not quite the same as thinking about chord tones and harmonic and how to make the chords kind of go with each other.
1, 2, 3,
So for me, the difference between linking chord tones and scales, it tends to emphasize the more pivotal harmonic relationships, and to me, connecting them is
pivotal. You mean the notes that are combined to the two chords,
or the notes that get us from one chord to another.
Okay, like the 3 and the 7.
Exactly. It's easier to connect those when we're thinking about. It's harder to connect them when we're thinking about lines. Mm-hmm. And the lines just they don't the distance. You travel further when you're dealing with the chord tones, mm-hmm. I think, and I think you get more colors especially against dominant chords. I think those chromatic neighbors give you colors. They give you the flat 13s, they give you the 9s and the sharp 5. They give you all those colors, whereas just thinking in terms of the scales doesn't get you into those colorations as much, I think. And so that's another thing I think about.
Okay, so let's say this kind of chromatic approach and to play with them together with the feel and to know where to put the articulation and the attack.
Right.
Then and together with mastering the melody, so you can like automatically go to it.
Right. Well, the clarinet's job in New Orleans music was always to provide those relationships.
Because it was after behind the trumpet to play the trumpet, play the melody, and then.
So there's rhythmic counterpoint and melodic counterpoint, but also kind of grabbing those chord tones. So think of them. Is there something you play the melody?
Yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and. It's a good exercise to improvise over the melody, to hear it again, to record yourself the melody.
Oh yeah, I guess that would be. That's a great exercise.
Play the second voice.
Yeah, that's
Try
a great
to play
exercise.
the second voice above it.
Yeah. Well, and as far as soloing, it also helps because it starts to get you into the other parts of the chords instead of always starting on the root, or always you're actually forced to start in a different place in the chords. So you end up after a while you end up with things that sound like this.
1, 2, 3, and.
roots in what I was doing, building a lot of things off of the third or the seventh. So. So you don't even hear the roots really. So you get into more interesting parts of the chords and the nines and all the colors, and Django, of course, his voicings get you up there. I mean, I think there was another guitar player for people to check out, Charlie Christian, and really start to understand how his lines are actually derived from the voicings themselves, and the shapes are actually above the 1, 3, 5, 7 of the chord. There are other places. Piano is excellent for that. I would say a lot of times conceptually I'm actually seeing shapes.
You see shapes.
Yeah, sure.
Piano. You play piano, right?
Enough to see some shapes. So that even over a blues, for instance, I'm actually really far. Things that I would play on piano if I was playing blues voicings and there was a bass player.
And you improvise on this voicing.
You just get into different parts of the blues. Those are all so there's a lot of different choices, but I think primarily, and what people need to remember about Louis also is really important, is that the first experience he had in a band was with his mentor King Oliver, where he was playing second cornet. Which is playing the harmony part. A lot of the times he's imposing the 6 against it. So if you're playing a D7, right? So it would be saying over that D7, there's an A minor triad that he's working with. So there's an imposition of a different chord there that's giving us. The D7 is giving us the 13 and the 9 automatically right off the bat. So that's
more things that you are thinking of.
Yeah, all the time.